Zone Media.
Welcome back to Behind the Bastards, the podcast where we tell you everything you don't know about the very worst people in all of history. And this week, we're actually going behind, in some ways, we're going behind almost everybody's favorite movie protagonist, Indiana Jones, by talking about the guy who's often credited as being the real Indiana Jones, Percy Fawcett. And as a spoiler, Percy Fawcett sucked ass. But you know who doesn't suck is our guest today, Miriam. Miriam, welcome back, or welcome to the show. You are a friend of the pod in the most literal sense of the word, and also a friend of Live Like the World is Dying, which is a podcast that is also the friend of our podcast.
Yes. Great
Hey.
to be here. Yeah, that is me. I'm part of an anarchist publishing collective called Strangers in a Tangled Wilderness, and we do a podcast called Live Like the World is Dying, which I am both a friend of and a podcaster of.
Yay.
Awesome.
Listeners, you'll notice a trend where I cheat work by having my friends on a podcast, so it feels less horrible to be working on a Friday. So Miriam's here, and I'm very happy about it.
I feel like most people work on a Friday, but you know who doesn't work on a Friday is the subject of our episodes this week, Percy Fawcett, because he's been dead for decades. Miriam, have you ever heard of Percy Fawcett?
I have not, but I have rarely heard a more villainous name. Like, that is a name that I assume he had a curly mustache.
He had a mustache. He had exactly, if you picture in your mind's eye, like a British explorer from the late Victorian, early 20th century age. And he's whoever you're picturing. If you're picturing like a British explorer from like 1900, Robert. That's Percy Fawcett.
Hold on. For the Netflix,
yeah.
Are we talking like pith helmet being carried in a sedan chair by people who live the place he just discovered?
Oh my God.
Yeah, look at that.
Look at that guy.
He's got a beautiful curling mustache, like magnificent, and also like a full beard, like he just came out of the Amazon. He's wearing an explorer's pea coat and some sort of weird, I honestly don't know what's going on with his hat.
The hat is a mystery. I've never seen this hat before.
Dare I say,
it looks like he's got a...
Would wear the jacket, though.
Look, the whole fit's good. It's not a bad fit. There's a reason why he's the dude that everybody's basing their, like, Indiana Jones style, like, adventure archaeologist characters on. It's because he did look pretty cool.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
The king is the law.
From Focus Features and the acclaimed director of Jason Bourne.
The king says work harder, you work harder.
Starring Andrew Garfield.
Enough! We've given you enough!
In a land of kings, one man will defy an empire.
There will be no peace until we are free.
And ignite a revolution.
10,000 rebels converge on London.
Based on a true story.
We rule ourselves now.
The Uprising. Rated R. Under 17, animated without parent. Only in theaters September 11th. Discovered at Dolby Cinema.
Thinking about selling your car? Start with a real offer worth real money from CarMax. Then take 7 days to compare your offer, and when you're ready, accept your offer and get paid. CarMax will even pick up your car. That's it. No haggling, no hassles, no pressure. Just a real offer worth real money from CarMax. Get all the details and a real offer today at CarMax.com. Want to drive? CarMax. At-home pickup not available in all locations. Distance restrictions and a fee may apply.
Bite into a stacked sandwich made with Hero Bread, and the only thing you'll think is delicious. You won't think it has up to 19 grams protein, 11 to 32 grams of fiber, or just 0 to 5 grams net carbs. But it does. Hero Bread. No compromises, just loaves, buns, tortillas, bagels, and noodles packed with flavor. Right now, get 10% off at hero.co with code IHEART. That's HERO.co, code IHEART. All figures per serving of Hero Bread. See nutrition facts on hero.co.
Think about it. When it comes to your own food, you can walk into a restaurant, see what's being made, and know exactly what you're getting. But with dog food, most brands keep that completely hidden. Just Food for Dogs does the opposite. They've built their entire brand around open kitchens. You can actually walk in and watch them prepare your dog's meals with real human-grade ingredients like chicken, beef, carrots, and peas, cooked right there in front of you. No mystery, no behind the scenes you're not allowed to see. That kind of transparency is rare in the pet food world. And it's a big reason they've become the #1 vet-recommended fresh dog food. earning trust from pet parents who want to feel confident in what they're feeding. When a brand is willing to show you exactly how your dog's food is made, it says a lot about the care, quality, and standards behind every meal they produce. Nothing to hide, everything to love. Go to justfoodfordogs.com and get 50% off your first order.
So, Percy Fawcett, some people, would you say that, because he gets credited a lot as being the real Indiana Jones, that's not like true in the most literal, direct way. George Lucas and Steven Spielberg have been open about the fact that the character in the movies were inspired, like Star Wars, by pulpy adventure serials that the two encountered in their youth, right? Like Star Wars owes a lot to Flash Gordon, and Indiana Jones is more inspired by Zorro and kind of a melange of World War II era films, particularly a series of adventure B movies starring actors like Alan Ladd and Charlton Heston, with titles like Secret of the Incas. And I think Heston's Secret of the Incas is like one of the movies that most directly inspired Indiana Jones. However, if you dig around a little bit, you will find people saying that, like, well, Percy is really the guy who inspired all the characters who kind of Indiana Jones was based off of. So Indiana Jones was inspired by these fictional characters from pulp serials in the 40s and 50s. And those pulp characters were largely inspired by Percy Fawcett. And that is accurate. To give you an example of how this usually gets written out, I found an article on Sky History that said, quote, possibly the individual most touted as an inspiration for Indiana Jones is Percy Harrison Fawcett, a British Army officer, surveyor, and daring jungle explorer. Fawcett's life history reads like the plot of an adventure novel or action film. And that is true. His life, his biography does read like the plot of an adventure novel because he wrote it. And he wrote it trying to ape adventure novels because he was also a fan of the adventure novels that a lot of people were writing at the time. And he was deliberately kind of crafting an image for himself. And the specific thing Fawcett dedicated his life to doing is very Indiana Jones, because he spent his life and, in fact, lost his life looking for a magical lost city in the Amazon. Right?
Oh.
Like yeah. Huh. So that might key you in on. He's not a serious archaeologist.
But was he a good writer? Like,
yeah, not bad.
What are we working with here?
Yeah, reasonably good. Yeah. And, you know, he's more to the point. It's not just that he was a good writer, because he did like write his own life story down, and he very much themed it off of things that he'd read in adventure novels in some ways. But he was also personal friends with Arthur Conan Doyle and H. Rider Haggard, who are like the two guys who wrote some of the most influential novels in that genre in the early 1900s. Mm-hmm. So all of the movies and stuff that George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were inspired by when they made Indiana Jones were themselves inspired off of novels by guys like H. Rider Haggard and Arthur Conan Doyle, and they were friends with Percy Fawcett and wrote books based on his exploits, right? So it really is pretty fair to call Percy Fawcett, if not like the real Indiana Jones, then one of the main inspirations behind Indiana Jones. Now, it's also fair to note that many modern adventure film protagonists are at least partly inspired by Percy Fawcett. I would say Dr. Alan Grant from Jurassic Park and Nathan Drake from the Uncharted games both have a little bit of Percy in them, or at least a little bit of like the public vision of Percy, because the public vision of Percy is not accurate to the real man, right? Percy Fawcett was a fraud. He was a murderer, and he was one of the most irresponsible fathers that we have ever talked about on this show. Like, in the long list of horrible dads, he's up there.
Yeah, I just rewatched the original Jurassic Park in the last couple of months, and what a great film! What a Laura Dern, honey, what a great film! Yeah.
And Sam Neill, the recently tragically departed Sam Neill, who could have played Percy Fawcett. I bet he could have grown a mustache of that caliber. I have that kind of faith in Sam Neill's facial hair.
More than that, I believe Sam Neill could have made it look good.
I know. I think he could have made it look good. I'll say it. I think he could have found a lost city in the Amazon if he'd really wanted to. But he didn't. He mostly wanted to hang out with his ducks.
Oh, pure soul.
Yeah, he was a nice man. So historians and experts in Amazonian exploration tend to hate Percy Fawcett because he was a fraud and a huge asshole, right? And these guys will often be like, well, there's other people who more deserve to be credited as being like the real life Indiana Jones. If you listen to like credible folks who are experts in jungle exploration, they will tend to say that a better pick would have been a guy like Hiram Bingham. Hiram Bingham was a Yale professor and a groundbreaking archaeologist and World War I veteran, and who's one of the people who's often credited with rediscovering Machu Picchu, right? So that's like certainly seems more like the Indiana Jones like we want to believe would have existed, right? An actual like heroic soldier who was also a really good archaeologist. But if you care about who most deserved to be memorialized by Harrison Ford at his absolute sexiest, I think we have to look at like which of these quote unquote real Indiana Joneses actually looked more like the guy. And Sophie's going to show you a picture of Hiram Bingham, and he looks like fine, but he does not look cool, right? Like, look at this man. He's completely clean shaven for one thing, which is not cool looking in the jungle. He does kind of have an Indiana Jonesy hat on, but everything about him is just like so clean and well kempt. Like, again, great scientist. But Sophie's next going to show you another photo of Percy Fawcett looking a lot like Indiana Jones, actually. Like he's got the hat. He's got the little like cravat down around his neck. He's looks like he's just been living completely outdoors for years at a time. Like he really does look like an explorer.
Yeah, but look how hot Harrison Ford looks there.
None of them look as hot as Harrison Ford. None of them look as hot as Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones.
A very high standard.
Harrison
but he unfortunately, Percy Fawcett does look quite cool there.
He looks cool.
I mean, he doesn't look well. Like he looks like he looks like he's dying
in the jungle.
No, he looks like he is dysentery, like 90% dysentery. But the hat is working for him.
I get the vibe. Great. He doesn't look like Harrison Ford looks like a guy that could crash a plane. But
well, and Harrison Ford looks like a guy who's been getting like a surplus of calories and protein and thus has muscle mass, which nobody who's living in the jungle in 1905 does.
That's great, but there's some great hats here as somebody who loves a hat. Oh,
these are all good hats. I mean, 3 really solid hats in a row between the pictures of Percy, Hiram, and just a screenshot of Indiana Jones.
Wow.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Percy Fawcett looks like if he tried to punch a Nazi, his arm would break in half.
And it would shatter. It would shatter immediately because he hasn't had any iron in his diet in more than a year. So if you've heard of Percy Fawcett, you've probably heard about him in the context of his search for the lost city that he called Z. And this became famous in around 2009 when author David Grann published a book, The Lost City of Z, about Percy Fawcett. And his goal, Fawcett went missing searching for this lost city that he told everybody was definitely in the Amazon, and then pretty much died. He died somewhere out in the jungle, right? As a spoiler for where this goes. And people went searching for him for years to see if they could find Percy. There were rumors that he was still hiding in the jungle. He wasn't. He just died. And then Grann in 2009 publishes this book that's kind of a reappraisal of Percy's legacy, because we have found in the interim decade since Percy went missing that there were large inhabited sections of the Amazon, not in the way that Percy thought there were, but in a way that has caused people to kind of reappraise his legacy and be like, well, he was kind of right about the fact that there were like large urban society or semi-large urban like societies in the Amazon prior to European contact, right? And that book was popular enough that in 2016, there was a movie made based on the book, starring a guy who looks kind of like Brad Pitt as Percy Fawcett and Robert Pattinson as his friend Henry Costin.
A guy who kind of looked, that guy is so famous. You're talking about Charlie Hunnam, the guy who
he looks kind of like Brad Pitt.
Sons of Anarchy, like that guy's wildly famous. And
they're looking a little like Brad Pitt.
It looks a little bit like Brad Pitt without, like, being like an abuse.
Look, he's fine in the
without
movie.
The
Robert
abusiveness of Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt sucks, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have also never heard of Charlie Hunnam.
Thank you, Miriam.
I have, because handsome.
That's fair.
Yeah. Again, he looks kind of like Brad Pitt.
Handsome.
Robert Pattinson is way better in the movie. Way better.
Also,
but the movie is completely inaccurate. And the book, I should also say, David Grann's book, The Lost City of Z, is completely inaccurate. And this is going to disappoint some of you, those of you who read it. It disappointed me because I read Grann's book in like 2009 or 10, and I liked it. He's a very good writer. If you've heard of his name, or you think you've heard of his name, it's probably because he wrote the book Killers of the Flower Moon, which was turned into a widely celebrated film. But Grann's book about Percy, while enjoyable, is completely fucking wrong about every important detail pretty much about the man's life, right? To the point where actual experts on the Amazon and the history of exploration in the Amazon are livid at Grann and his book and the movie that was made based out of it. One of Grann's major sources, a guy he thanks profusely in his book and say, I couldn't have written this book without the book this Amazon historian and explorer wrote, is an explorer named John Henning. And John Henning's review of Grann's book is succinct and brutal. Quote, "It is a pity that a writer as good as Grann chose to study this unimportant, disagreeable, and ultimately pathetic man. It is an even greater pity that he decided to inflate and distort so much of this sad story."
Holy
so again,
shit.
it's really pretty brutal. Like, Grann did not do a good job with the Percy Fawcett story. I'm sorry.
I love man-on-man crime. That was so cool.
Henning, we're going to hear a lot from him in this, and he does not spare the rod on this book. It's beautiful stuff.
I was surprised that when you were saying the book was really bad, and I have not read Lost City of Z, but I have read Killers of the Flower Moon, and I was okay. So a good writer telling lies is what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but the experts say that he willingly and knowingly distorted the truth in his book to a massive degree, right? That's the allegation that a lot of experts have made about Grann's book. I'm going to try not to distort the story. We'll see how well I do. Percy Fawcett's tale begins, as many bad things do, at the height of the Victorian age. Percy Harrison Fawcett was born on August 18th, 1867. Mm-hmm.
We've even got a Harrison Ford connection.
He's got a Harrison in there. Exactly. Who? Maybe they're related. That's not how names work, but it could be. He was born August 18th, 1867 in Torquay near Devon, which is in like the southwest tip of England. His mother had been born Myra MacDougall, and his father's family were old and aristocratic members of the Yorkshire gentry. His family, the Fawcetts, had owned Scaleby Castle and probably got rich as shipping magnates in the East Indies. That's generally where people say most of their money came from. His father was Captain...
So their money is in castles and slavery.
This is, I think, mostly post-slavery, because we're talking like post-1830 is when they make their fortune. I'm not saying, that doesn't mean that it wasn't sketchy, but I think it was post-slavery is when they make most of their money. I did look into that, because once I heard shipping, I was like, okay, what year were they shipping stuff? Because there was a certain age that would have been people. But I think they were mostly too late for that to have been where they got their fortune. His father was Captain Edward Boyd Fawcett, who Grann's book describes as a Victorian aristocrat and member of the Prince of Wales's inner circle, and that does seem to have been accurate. He was also a famously good cricket player. Alas, Edward Fawcett loved to drink, and by the time Percy was born, he'd acquired the nickname Bulb for what years of alcoholism had done to his nose, right? So... He's again, you have to be quite the drinker for people in like the 1870s and 80s to be like, wow, you're kind of drinking a little too hard, aren't you? Like you're going a little bit off the wagon there, my man. Like that means you've got a serious problem. So Edward was almost the platonic ideal of the rich young fail-son fuck-up from an aristocratic British family. He cheated on his wife constantly, and he pissed away the family fortune gambling and getting drunk. One of his kinsmen described him as a good man gone wrong. But the things this person cites as evidence that Fawcett was ever a good man had nothing to do with morality. He described him as a Balliol scholar and fine athlete, yachtsman, charmer and wit, equerry to the Prince of Wales. And again, none of those are things that make me think he was a good man. Like, okay, like he was well connected and he was charming and funny. That doesn't mean he wasn't drinking and an asshole, right?
Yeah, could sail a yacht real good is not like...
Yeah, could sail a yacht real well. I think bad people can sail yachts, like Mark Zuckerberg, for example. But yeah, this does reveal kind of something important about the culture Percy and his Fawcett were born to help expand and lead. For members of the upper class in the British Empire, being good at sports was proof that you were a good person. And not just a good person, but a perfect living embodiment of colonial values, right? When Percy's dad's friends say he was a good man because he used to be a great athlete, that's not, they don't think that's weird, because they are like, the purpose of sports in the height of the British Empire is to make soldiers for the British Empire. Cricket, which is the sport that Percy and his dad are both known for being best at, originated around the 7th century CE, and by the 1600s it had become popular among the nobility. As much as anything, playing sports meant that you were rich enough to have time for something that wasn't hard labor or worship. Cricket spread through Britain's early colonies, and the first cricket club came to India in 1792. It soon became a passionate thing for soldiers to engage in, per an article in The Collector by Greg Bayer. For the most part, cricket was an obsession of the military, and there were even complaints of British officers taking up valuable logistic space by bringing their cricket gear on military campaigns. One such complaint was received before the Battle of Islandwanda, where the British suffered their biggest ever defeat to indigenous forces. So, is it possible that the British lost to the Zulus there because they were too obsessed with playing cricket? Unlikely, but not impossible.
Yeah, I can picture some Victorian era British officer leaving behind the guns to bring a couple extra crates of cricket whites or whatever they've got.
Just I can kind of picture U.S. soldiers maybe fucking off on patrol duty and getting ambushed because they're paying attention to who's winning the Super Bowl or something, right? They're shooting 100%. Into a radio or some shit. Easy. So the fact that Edward Fawcett, Percy's dad, was considered one of the best cricket players of his generation means that, prior to his fall into disrepute, he would have been one of the more lauded military officers of his era, because being good at cricket was about as good as being good in actual warfare in this period of time. By the time Percy himself was born, cricket was valued not just as a game in and of itself, but as a way to induct young men into imperialist values and make them better soldiers. This is very directly stated in educator Peter Crowhurst's website, British Empire, 1815 to 1914. Quote, as public schools began to turn out English Christian gentlemen, the British government came to see these schools as providing the training character needed by Britain's colonial servants working in far-flung parts of the empire. By the last quarter of the century, when Britain justified imperial expansion by claiming Britain had a mission to civilize the undeveloped parts of the world, it was the values transmitted by cricket that helped to tie the colonies and its peoples to Britain. And
I would
that maybe
love to know
weird.
what the values it included in cricket are.
Great. I'm glad you asked that question, Miriam. So those values are, supposedly, a competitive spirit and a selfless dedication to the team, right? And they see that as transferring pretty directly to making you a selfless soldier who's willing to sacrifice for their comrades in the empire. This is why Lord Wellington is said to have mused that the Battle of Waterloo had been first, quote, fought on the playing fields of Eton, right? Wellington was claiming that the reason why he beat Napoleon at Waterloo is that his officers learned the values that made them great soldiers through playing sports. That's what made them able to beat Napoleon and his officers, right? This is something Wellington said. So maybe we should take it seriously, not necessarily as a literal evidence of how well cricket worked at making soldiers, but as a sign of the place that cricket held in English culture in this period of time. Probably no single piece of media better embodies this than a poem by Sir Henry Newbolt, himself born in 1862, titled Play Up, and Play the Game. This is a poem about how sports is supposed to make boys into great imperial soldiers. I'm going to read you the first couple stanzas of it. There's a breathless hush in the close tonight, 10 to make and the match to win, a bumping pitch in a blinding light, an hour to play and the last man in, and it's not for the sake of a ribboned coat or the selfish hope of a season's fame, but his captain's hand on his shoulder smote. Play up, and play the game! The sand of the desert is sodden red, red with the wreck of the square that broke, the Gatlings jammed and the colonel dead, and the regiment blind with dust and smoke. The river of death has brimmed its banks, and England's far and honor a name, but the voice of a schoolboy rallies the ranks. Play up, and play the game. You see what they're saying there, right?
Holy shit.
Yeah. First off, pretty good poem, technically, right? But second,
just really affirms the decision to cut gym class.
Right.
Really.
Yes, we need to stop kids from playing sports. Keep them inside on the computer. get these boys in front of a screen or they're going to conquer India. Like, I don't know. Look, we have not invaded Afghanistan since creating TikTok. That's all I'm going to say.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. These are the values that young Percy is going to grow up absolutely doused in, right? And the fact, like, when he's being praised as being a great cricketer, he's being praised as, like, you're going to be a very good soldier for the British Empire, right? And at the same time as he's growing up and he's getting, going to school and getting into sports, he's watching his father completely collapse as a human being. Over the course of Percy's childhood, he's going to squander 2 fortunes and basically abandon his family until he dies of consumption at age 45. Percy doesn't really know his dad very well. He mostly just knows that his dad let the entire family down. His mother, Myra, is obviously a victim here, but she's going to take her frustrations with life and her husband out on her kids. Gran's book quotes a family member as saying, "Her unhappy married life caused her much frustration and embitterment, inclining her to caprice and injustice, particularly to her children." And Gran adds, Percy later confided to Arthur Conan Doyle that his mother was all but hateful. In his pseudo-biography, Exploration Fawcett, Percy wrote diplomatically, "Perhaps it was all for the best that my childhood was so devoid of parental affection that it turned me upon myself," right? And that's Percy's claim about himself, is that his dad's basically gone and his mom is really mean. And so he just kind of focuses on himself, right? As opposed to like his family or anything else. Like it turns him inward and it makes him a very, it's going to make him like a quiet and kind of, he's obsessive, but about like things that other kids don't really understand and aren't really interested in, right? He's going to be like searching for gold as a little kid repeatedly. This is something he's really interested in. And I get the feeling he just kind of falls into these fictional and non-fictional stories of like exploration and these like great, lost treasures and whatnot, because it's a fantasy life, and any fantasy life is better than his like life at home, right?
I don't get the sense that that's much of an outlier in like the parenting style of the British aristocracy of the 19th century.
Nah.
Like, I think even if you had a like living healthy father who was at home, like the style in that class at the time was like pay somebody else to beat your children far away from you was like how they parented.
And and to that extent, probably the biggest impact his parents had on him is that his dad is a failure, right? As opposed to his dad being like distant and non-affectionate and a drunk, but also a success, right? That would have made for a different kind of childhood somewhat. Because he does seem to have some degree of like shame over his dad, especially as a younger kid and man. He has an older brother named Edward, and he loves his older brother. Edward's athletic, but also very bookish. And so Percy's going to like take after his older brother. And when his older brother gets into like weird esoteric spiritual stuff, Percy's going to follow him there too. Like most kids of the upper class, Percy is sent to expensive public schools. And when we talk about public schools in this period of time, we're talking about private schools, actually. Like that's how we would describe them today, but they'll usually call them public schools back then. Now, the system that kind of governs life in the schools that Percy's going to, these boarding academies, we've talked about it before on this show. It's called the prefect fagging system, right? And yes, this is where the slur comes from, right? But this predates that also. Like they don't mean it as that specific slur, but that is like one of the origin points of the slur. And the prefect fagging system was a way of organizing kids in boarding schools and training them and letting them kind of like train each other through abuse that was common in the most prestigious institutions of learning in the British Empire. To talk about that a little bit, I want to quote from an article in the History of Education Quarterly by Paul Nash. Under the prefect fagging system, senior boys are given a major role in governing the school, wielding discipline and carrying responsibility. They are called, variously, prefects, monitors, or praepostors. Chosen according to many criteria, including physical and intellectual prowess, the principal consideration in their selection, apart from seniority, has traditionally been character. Usually the prefects are members of the sixth form, and while in some schools all members of the sixth are granted privileged status, the two bodies are not customarily identical. At the other end of the scale, new boys entering the school begin by serving as fags for senior boys. Their duties consist of almost anything the fag master cares to impose, from cooking and running errands to blacking shoes and kindling fires. And that is kind of a tame look at how the system works. this is built on physical and psychological abuse and encouraging physical and psychological abuse of boys. Sexual abuse is so common to have been almost universal, at least in some periods of time. You'll hear some differences, but the number of boys who experience some degree of sexual abuse under this system is like most of them, one way or the other. Like, it's a deeply abusive and messed up system. The most
it's basically like just institutionalized, unimaginably bad bullying.
Yes, and this is, by the way, what the house system and everything in Harry Potter is based on. She doesn't call it the prefect fagging system, but she uses the term prefects and like head boys and stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's all based on.
The exposure that I've had to this also is did you ever read the book Boy by Roald Dahl? It was like an early autobiography. He describes acting in this role, and I just I mean, it's been like literal decades since I've read it, but I remember one of the things he was required to do for like the boy he was assigned to was go into the like outdoor privy before him and sit on the toilet seat to melt the ice on it and warm it up. And being complimented on having like a nice warm bottom by the boy for whom he is doing this.
Oh boy.
Which, like,
I hate that.
I'm just gonna let that sit there because I don't feel like I'm gonna like analyze that.
And that's one of the tamer stories. Yeah. That you're going to get out of this system.
Yeah, that is the G-rated version of what must have been going on.
It's to make the boys who make the British Empire, you got to do some fucked up stuff. Now, speaking of things that are inherently abuse,
no.
Anyway, here's some ads.
This is Matt Altmix from How to Money, and we are all about comparing prices to save money on so many things in life. So why wouldn't you compare prices for your next ride share? Taking a few seconds to check Lyft can save you real money on your next ride. And I did this last time I caught a ride home from the airport after some travel, and guess who came out on top? Lyft. So don't just price check with flights and phone plans and your groceries. Comparing ride share prices will help you to save money every time you ride. Save money, check Lyft.
Do you hear that? That sound, right? That means that summer's officially here. It means that grown adults just sprint into the street for a frozen dessert shaped like a cartoon. But this summer, Mint Mobile has a better treat. Every plan, including unlimited, is $15 a month. And unlike ice cream, it won't drip down your wrist or look nothing like the picture. Does anyone have any cash? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. New customer offer for initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Think about it. When it comes to your own food, you can walk into a restaurant, see what's being made, and know exactly what you're getting. But with dog food, most brands keep that completely hidden. Just Food for Dogs does the opposite. They've built their entire brand around open kitchens. You can actually walk in and watch them prepare your dog's meals with real human-grade ingredients like chicken, beef, carrots, and peas, cooked right there in front of you. No mystery, no behind the scenes you're not allowed to see. That kind of transparency is rare in the pet food world. And it's a big reason they've become the #1 vet-recommended fresh dog food, earning trust from pet parents who want to feel confident in what they're feeding. When a brand is willing to show you exactly how your dog's food is made, it says a lot about the care, quality, and standards behind every meal they produce. Nothing to hide, everything to love. Go to justfoodfordogs.com and get 50% off your first order.
Knix, that's KNIX leak-proof underwear, is made for real life. Because when your day is already full, your underwear shouldn't be something you have to think about. Knix gives you reliable leak-proof protection that fits seamlessly into your routine. For periods, for light bladder leaks, for workouts, for everyday freshness. Knix leak-proof underwear comes in a range of absorbencies, from light to ultra. So if you need a little backup or all-day protection, there's a pair for you. Unlike bulky protection, Knix feels barely there with soft fabrics, moisture-wicking layers, and anti-odor technology that keeps you feeling fresh and confident. Wear them to work, running errands, traveling, even overnight. Plus, they're machine washable, so you can wear them again and again. Find your perfect level of protection at knix.com and get 15% off with code FLOW15. That's knix.com, code FLOW15. That's knix.com.
And we're back. So The most we get about his experiences under this pretty brutal schooling system from Percy is an insistence that being caned regularly, quote, did nothing to alter my outlook. In other words, all that abuse didn't change me. Like, don't worry. Mm-hmm. It didn't affect me at all. Mm-hmm. In the book Brazil That Never Was, A.J. Lees, who extensively studied Fawcett's life, writes that, by all accounts, he was a sensitive and rather solitary child who, during school holidays, would go hunting for treasure near his home, which is a very cute thing for a kid who's enduring all this shit to want to do. Like, you have to have some sympathy for him in this era, just like desperately wanting anything but the life that he's got. Hard not to sympathize with that.
Yeah, very expensive abuse is still abuse.
Very expensive abuse, yeah. And while there is some suggestion, some evidence that the heavy expectations and demand placed on the young men of his station chafed him, he also excelled as a student and in sports, first as a cricket player. As Gran writes in his book, spectators noticed an almost maniacal determination about his style of play. One observer said that Fawcett invariably showed the bowlers it takes something more than ordinary to dislodge him once set. He gets a reputation for physical toughness. He's almost immune to physical discomfort. That's how people will always talk about Percy his entire life. He's just incredibly tough. Like, he does not mind being in a horrible pain and discomfort, and he's willing to endure that longer than most people can. And this is going to be his superpower his entire life. The only way he's able to do the things he does is because he just doesn't mind being in horrible agony for years at a time.
I bet that works out great for everybody who goes along with him.
It makes him a safe guy to be friends with. That's what it makes him. One of the stories they tell about him is when he's playing a rugby game once, and he keeps playing after losing both of his front teeth. Like, it doesn't slow him down at all. They've just been smashed in. Cool stuff. After Percy graduates the British equivalent of high school, he gains admission to the Royal Military Academy at Woolwich. Now, in spite of his education, this is not what Percy wants for himself. He does not want to be a soldier, but his mom wants to see him in uniform, and probably one imagines she wants to see her son succeed where her husband had failed. And his older brother doesn't do this. His older brother, I think, is just like, I've got other plans, and bounces to go write about magic. As a spoiler for what we'll be talking about him a little later. So Percy goes to the military academy, and it sucks. The military academy is also an incredibly abusive place for boys. Percy is hazed relentlessly, as all the rest of his peers. One common game, and they always call them games, even though these are some of the most psychotically violent things you can hear about, is to have young cadets burn their skin on a hot poker. That's one fun game. It's like, how long can you burn your skin with this branding iron? Another fun game
classic.
is... Yeah, classic game. Another great game is they have kids stand on a table and then they kick the legs out from underneath the table and see, like, can you not flinch and just, like, fall down straight with the table, or do you jump like a coward, right? Now, I can't say exactly how this influenced him. Throughout his life, Fawcett is going to be very critical of British culture, right? Not in a way that rejects wholly its racism or even imperialist values, but he will see himself his whole life as a kind of social dissident. And one does suspect that the brutality of his education may have influenced that, right? He is a loyal soldier of the empire, and he's also very critical of, like, the mainstream culture within the empire. In 1886, Percy is commissioned as an artillery officer. As John Henning wrote in a critical summary of the man's life for The Spectator, the next 20 years involved garrison duty in Ceylon and postings in Malta and England. The only significant events were getting married and becoming a devotee, like many others, of the charlatan psychic Madame Blavatsky. And... We've done several episodes on Helena Blavatsky. She's a hoot. This is the lady who invents Theosophy. And Theosophy is a few generations on. Some of the people who, like, are ideological descendants of hers become the Nazis, right? Or become the original occult weirdos that were in the Nazis, right? That's like one of the things you can tie to Blavatsky, kind of, although she herself was not. Not that she wasn't racist.
Yeah, she did come up with the whole, the root races.
The root races and all this kind of stuff. stuff too, right? Yes. So like a lot of Aryan theory has its roots in Blavatsky. Now that description by Henning also leaves out some important facts. As he stated, Percy's going to be stationed in Ceylon, which is part of modern day Sri Lanka. And he's there actually as like an 18 or 19-year-old. And before he turns 20, so when he's still a teenager, he finds himself first drawn to Buddhist mysticism. And this is like he's stationed in a Buddhist country, and he see there's all these, very old temples that have been around forever, and he's just immediately drawn to like old things. And he finds himself much more intrigued by Buddhism than he is by Christianity. He grows obsessed with Gala Pitagala, which is a famous rock formation in Ceylon that he seems to have believed had hid some sort of treasure. He thinks that this rock formation that's a natural rock formation, there were probably was a king buried nearby. And the way he came upon this belief is telling. He's just sort of like talking to people, and he finds a local man who describes himself as a descendant of the Kandyan kings and assures him that there's a king's hoard buried somewhere near the rocks. We have no evidence this is anything but a local grifter, right? He's like hanging out in a tourist trap, and a guy's like, yeah, I'm descended from the old kings, and I'll tell you where gold is for a price, right? That's the feeling I get from here. I don't think Percy's stumbled upon anything other than a guy who's telling him what he wants to hear. But Fawcett decides to carry out his first expedition based on this information. And he digs around the area. All he finds are some pottery sherds, and he doesn't document those in any useful way. So we don't know if those were like recent or if he actually found something old. He doesn't find any gold, so he doesn't really care, right? But this failure is not going to do anything to discourage him, right? This is sort of his like gateway drug of exploring for like lost antiquities.
It's so frustrating and interesting. Like you said, he got intrigued by Buddhism. But like when you are in a Buddhist country intrigued by Buddhism, like you have the opportunity to like go and study Buddhism with Buddhists.
He'll do that too.
And like go and learn about the religion and how it's practiced and like what ideas people are kicking around in there. And instead he like found some dude who was like, there's gold there maybe. Yeah. And like that's what he like that's the part he latches onto. And like I don't know. I know some Buddhists. They're not big repositories of secret gold.
I don't think Buddha really encouraged searching for gold. I think desire's bad, actually.
It's just such a like disappointing way to take that interest.
It's because he is going to he's going to become a Buddhist. Although I don't know that most Buddhists would recognize what Percy thinks Buddhism is as Buddhism, because his Buddhism is also wrapped up deeply in a lot of these weird kind of spiritualist beliefs that are circulating through like the hip chunks of European culture at the time. So it's very much like it's more accurate to say that he is intrigued by a mix of Buddhism and what like white people are writing about Buddhism that's largely a fantasy,
Right. Like Blavatsky's like conversations with Buddhist ghosts or whatever.
Exactly. Stuff like that is as much of an influence on him as like anything that we would call actual like Buddhist theology. So not long after he fails to find this king's ransom, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand visits Ceylon, and there's a huge party thrown to celebrate. Percy attends, but as Gran notes, he did not meet Ferdinand, which is sad, because this probably was going to be one of the last chances he would have gotten to meet the guy. But he spots a more alluring figure, a girl who seemed no more than 17 or 18. Her name was Nina Agnes Patterson, and she was the daughter of a colonial magistrate. So he sees this teenage girl, and he's like 20 or 21 at this point, right? So we're not talking about, no one would have noticed this as a weird age gap at the time. She's 17 or 18, he's 20 or 21. That's not even all that really weird today, right? And they kind of are making eyes with each other, and he can't talk to her directly because it's Britain in the fucking 1890s or whatever. So he manages to set up a meeting, and they find out they have some similar interests. Particularly, they both like ancient archaeology, and they both think Buddhism is really cool. Now, in addition to that, Nina is an early women's rights activist, and Percy's pretty tolerant on that issue for the day. I'm not going to call him like
woke,
committed necessarily. Comparatively so. I think he actually is pretty much okay with women voting, which is like a reasonably good at the time, I guess you have to say.
Yeah, we'll take what we can get.
I do wish that, like, in terms of things we could bring back, I think my friends should have to meet anybody who wants to date me before I meet that person.
Yeah, that's not quite how it worked back then.
No.
They should just have to run the gauntlet of your friends.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Someone should make an app for that.
That would. I don't know if that would work out well for me.
We'd have fun.
Yeah, just like a pinball game where you just have to bounce off all of this, whoever you want to flirt with, like close friends and relatives until you meet approval. Yeah. If we want to really drop birth rates, that's how to do it.
Oh my gosh.
Percy and Nina fall madly in love, as A.J. Lee summarizes in his book. After a courtship that lasted 2 years, Cheeky, as Fawcett nicknamed Nina because she always had to have the last word, and Puggy, as Nina called him because of his bulldog tenacity, were engaged to be married. They called each other Cheeky and Puggy. This is one of the things that the movie gets right, and it does sound as insufferable as you imagine it would be to be next to these two. Cheeky, come over here.
Who plays
yes, Puggy?
Who plays her
I
in
hope
the
they
movie?
didn't call each other that in public. I would
They did.
die.
They sure did. They sure did.
Who played her in the movie, Robert?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I didn't even know the name of the guy who looks like the other guy whose name I can't remember right now. Sophie, I don't remember her name.
Fair enough.
But Robert Pattinson's in the movie, and he's pretty good. He's got a beard.
Everybody knows Robert Pattinson's name.
Mm-hmm. So this is where the problems start, right? They're courting for 2 years. They're finally engaged to be married, but they run into an issue because Nina and Percy had selfishly only bothered to ask themselves if they wanted to be married, and they hadn't consulted the most important authority on that question, Percy's mom. And Myra does not want Percy to get married. Now, we don't really know why she doesn't like this match, but she starts spreading rumors first that her own son is a sleazebag who sleeps around constantly. So she first tries to just convince Nina that Percy's cheating on her, and that doesn't work. I think because Percy's kind of visibly frightened by the idea of sex. If you know Percy, it's just kind of obvious he's not cheating on anybody. Look at this man. He's scared of his own dick. He's certainly not sleeping around.
Your mom spreading rumors that you're a scumbag is
so funny. It's so and they're not believable. Like nobody buys it.
Incredible.
Every single dynamic in this family is so fucked.
I looked it up. Nina
really
Fawcett was played by Sienna Miller. Also, Tom Holland's in this movie as a Fawcett.
Tom Holland's in it.
This is
he's the boy. He's Percy's son who dies.
Oh, sensational! What an odd.
It's a fun movie. Totally inaccurate.
Totally inaccurate.
Yeah, totally inaccurate.
But it's from 2016, which feels very 2016.
It's a very 2016 movie. Yeah. It's a great Robert Pattinson performance, though.
As they all are.
Because Myra's plan to convince Nina that Percy's cheating on her does not work.
Philanderer.
Myra pivots to spreading rumors that Nina is no longer a virgin. Per the book,
why is
the Brazil
she such a bitch?
She sucks really bad.
Why is she
I wish
such
I knew
a
more about why
bad
Myra
person?
sucks this bad, but Myra sucked.
Well, anybody who's in the public paying attention to these rumors is just going to be like, okay, these two sluts seem to be into each other. Sounds
Seems
great.
Like these two horn dogs are made for each other.
God.
Per the book Brazil That Never Was, PHF, Percy Harrison Fawcett, felt he had no alternative but to break off their engagement, informing Nina in a letter, "You are not the pure young girl I thought you to be." So this absolutely devastates Nina.
After his mom
he's a
does
dipshit.
it.
He falls for everything. Anyone who tells him there's treasure, he'll spend years looking for it. He's an idiot.
Apparently.
Wow.
What a dumbass.
So this is devastating to Nina, obviously. And she leaves
that's
Ceylon.
awful.
It's fucked up. Percy continues being deployed to modern-day Sri Lanka, and he establishes a reputation for himself as intelligent and reliable, but also kind of a narcissist who's in love with his own voice. His commandant at the time more or less describes him that way. For his part, Percy does not seem to have been fulfilled with the life of a colonial officer. This isn't what he wants for himself. He's much more in love with the path his brother Edward has taken. Rather than getting into the military and becoming an officer, Edward becomes a writer and a mountaineer and gets deeply into Theosophism, the new religion created by Helena Blavatsky. Now, Blavatsky is this major figure in the spiritualist movement of the late 1800s and early 1900s, and Edward is one of her most gifted followers and collaborators. An article for Occult World by Lux Fair notes that a key aspect of Blavatsky's belief system was the idea of, quote, a brotherhood of advanced souls who form the hidden government of the world and direct the course of human knowledge. And while her most common term for this organization was the Great White Lodge or Great White Brotherhood, and while Blavatsky's success, that's what she tends to call this, and the white in there really gets emphasized by some people. Blavatsky's successors are going to alter and add to this concept over time, but historian K. Paul Johnson argues that, quote, the actual Great White Lodge of Blavatsky's time was a network of Hindu spiritual and political leaders who worked with her during her time in India to oppose the British colonial government and the activities of Christian missionaries. These conclusions have been sharply attacked by modern theosophists, but Johnson offers substantial evidence for his case, and it cannot be dismissed out of hand. Now, as noted, that's an interpretation worthy of debate. The idea that these great white masters were this network of like Hindu spiritual and nationalist leaders who were kind of fighting against the British imperial possession of their land. But Graham argues and cites some support for this argument too, right? His attitude is that Percy is drawn to theosophy because it's a counter-cultural movement that rejects aspects of British imperial dogma. And in his book, he quotes historian Janet Oppenheim, who wrote a biography of Blavatsky and argued that Blavatsky's philosophy had particular appeal, quote, for those who wanted to rebel dramatically against the constraints of the Victorian ethos, however they perceived that elusive entity. And I do think that describes Percy, and I think that describes Edward too. These are guys who want to rebel from aspects of the culture they're born into, and that's what draws them to theosophy. Edward Fawcett became one of a number of theosophists who converted to Buddhism and threw his support behind nationalist religious figures in Southeast Asia who opposed imperial rule. And Edward was close enough to Blavatsky that he helped her research and write her 1893 book, The Secret Doctrine. Percy's brother helps Helena Blavatsky write The Secret Doctrine. And in 1890, he travels to Ceylon and takes the Pansil, or the 5 precepts of Buddhism. So in 1890, before Percy shows up there, Percy's brother goes to Ceylon and becomes a Buddhist. And when you take these 5 precepts and agree to them, it means, among other things, that you're vowing not to drink, not to murder, and not to commit adultery. And Edward's conversion to Buddhism is so noteworthy that local newspapers report on it at the time. You can find press clippings from like these local Ceylon papers talking about how incredible it is that this British member, the oldest son of a famous family in the empire, has converted to Buddhism. It's kind of a big deal. And Percy, who kind of worships his older brother at this point, follows him not long after and takes the Pansil himself and converts to Buddhism. This is something he does publicly, and this is something that there's like press about. So it's a pretty big deal that both of the Fawcett brothers have done this. And one thing I do think Graham gets correct is that this is an act of political protest, right? The Fawcett brothers converting to Buddhism is not an apolitical act. And it's particularly a big deal that Percy does this because he is an agent of the colonial military of the British Empire and is converting to the faith of a colonized people and promising, I won't kill anybody. And there's a way you could even see that as kind of potentially treasonous, right? If you're a member of the British military that is supposed to keep this possession locked down, and you're both converting to the possessed people's religion and saying, I refuse to kill, you're kind of saying, I won't fight for Great Britain. You kind of are, right?
Yeah,
so he is a dissident in some ways.
You are certainly saying that. Does he stop occupying
No, he's going to kill.
anywhere?
He's going to kill
Okay.
at least one person. He's going to kill at least one person. Yeah.
Wow.
You know who else has killed at least one person?
At least one.
At least
one before breakfast most days. My God. Anyway, maybe you'll be next.
Robert, Jesus Christ.
There's no way to know with our supervisors. Sponsors? Advertisers. What am I talking about?
But you don't gotta threaten the audience.
It's not a threat. It's just kind of a promise.
Well,
if you hang out around our
them.
sponsors long enough, people die around them. There's no way to know. There's no way to know.
Statistics, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Allegedly.
This is Matt Altmix from How to Money, and we are all about comparing prices to save money on so many things in life. So why wouldn't you compare prices for your next rideshare? Taking a few seconds to check Lyft can save you real money on your next ride. And I did this last time I caught a ride home from the airport after some travel, and guess who came out on top? Lyft. So don't just price check with flights and phone plans and your groceries. Comparing rideshare prices will help you to save money every time you ride. Save money, check Lyft.
Most dog food brands don't really want you seeing how their food is made. Just Food for Dogs is the opposite. They actually invite you in. You can walk into any of their kitchens and see real human-grade ingredients like chicken, beef, carrots, and peas being prepared right in front of you. It's real food made in real kitchens. Nothing is hidden behind labels, and that kind of transparency says a lot. Nothing to hide, everything to love. Go to justfoodfordogs.com and get 50% off your first order.
Hi, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat, emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending. Zero tears.
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Knix, that's KNIX leak-proof underwear, is made for real life. Because when your day is already full, your underwear shouldn't be something you have to think about. Knix gives you reliable leak-proof protection that fits seamlessly into your routine. For periods, for light bladder leaks, for workouts, for everyday freshness. Knix leak-proof underwear comes in a range of absorbencies, from light to ultra. So if you need a little backup or all-day protection, there's a pair for you. Unlike bulky protection, Knix feels barely there with soft fabrics, moisture-wicking layers, and anti-odor technology that keeps you feeling fresh and confident. Wear them to work, running errands, traveling, even overnight. Plus, they're machine washable, so you can wear them again and again. Find your perfect level of protection at knix.com and get 15% off with code FLOW15. That's knix.com, code FLOW15. That's knix.com.
And we're back. So, in 1896, Percy is transferred from Ceylon back home to attend a course in gunnery. He gets stationed with a volunteer unit, I think in Ireland at this point, and life goes on for a few more years. In 1898, Nina Patterson marries an army captain named Herbert Pritchard, right? So, it takes her a few years to deal with the shame and shock of Percy breaking off the engagement because his mom lied about her.
Liar.
But she marries this other guy, Herbert Pritchard, and he's like 14 or 15 years older than her. It is not going to be a long partnership. Like right after they get hitched, they move to Alexandria, and he almost immediately dies of anthrax exposure. 3 months, 4 months after their wedding, something like that. And I don't know how true this is, but any book about Fawcett that you're going to read will cite what were apparently this guy's last words to Nina. I do wish you and Fawcett will come together again. To me, you have been a perfect wife, and I have thanked God in my prayers for having given you to me, but I feel sure you are meant for Fawcett, and I am just an interloper. I don't know how much I believe that, because they were together for like 4 months.
That guy didn't
real.
say that shit.
That doesn't seem real.
That's not real. That's fake.
That seems really fake. I don't know.
If I were a lady who had been publicly shamed and slut-shamed, and I was about to become a wealthy widow, I would definitely go around telling people that his last words to me had been, I really hope you get back together with your ex-boyfriend. That would be great for me.
Yeah,
your
I would
real
really
husband.
love it if you were to fuck the guy who broke up with you because his mom accused you of infidelity. That's my greatest hope for you, my wife.
Jesus fuck. Okay.
Now that you really aren't a virgin anymore, I hope that you do this. I don't know. That's weird. But maybe it's true. Probably not. My guess, given that he died of anthrax exposure, my guess is that his last words were more like, "Oh God, the anthrax! It hurts so bad." Something along those lines, perhaps.
I think his last words were probably "ah."
Yeah. That seems more credible. So
there's a lot of liars in this story, and they're making lying into an art form, and I appreciate that.
They love it. They love it. Now, everyone does seem to agree on is that by the time Nina's first husband dies, everyone seems to have learned that Myra lied about Nina not being a virgin, right? Like Percy learns that at some point before her husband dies, that he was tricked by his mom. And this really fucks him up for a while. And once he learns that she's single again, he finds her and he gets down on his knees and he begs for her forgiveness. And Nina forgives him. The two are married on January of 1901. This causes a permanent breach between Percy and most of the rest of the Fawcett family. That does not seem to have concerned him too much. I don't know how much. You don't hear a lot about him and the rest of his family after this point. I don't know if he was like bummed about them not being close or if this was kind of a good riddance sort of situation.
Do we know
That
why
said-
his family didn't like this lady? She seems like the only thing we've heard about her
like his
is
mom-
lies that the mom
It just
said.
sucks. I think his
Okay.
mom sucked. She is one thing I can imagine. She is an outspoken they didn't call them suffragettes in England, I don't think, but she's an outspoken advocate for women's rights, and that may have pissed off Percy's family. None of the sources I found specify why, though. So I honestly don't know. That would be kind of my theory. Maybe she's too outspoken about women's rights, but I actually genuinely don't know. So next, Percy is going to leap towards a great change in the next kind of stage of his life, because the military bores him, right? He doesn't want to stay an officer forever. He doesn't want to keep getting shipped around the empire. He's desperate for some new field of endeavor where he can prove himself. And his father had once been a member of the Royal Geographical Society. And the RGS, we hadn't known how to make good maps for very long, because in order to make like a really quality modern map, you need to be able to get both latitude and longitude. And I always forget which of them. I think it's longitude. You need like access to a good clock of some sort. Like you need to be able to tell the time in order to get the information you need to make a good map. And so until people could carry like watches that worked around with them, it was kind of hard to do very good mapping, right? There are other things that had to be invented too, but the point is that by the time Percy's born, the Royal Geographical Society has spent the last like several decades finally mapping all of these parts of the world that had never had what we would consider to be like a modern map, right? Most places, even that doesn't mean people didn't know what was there. It means that there was not like a modern map made to the standards of like modern map reading. And so the RGS has kind of made it its mission in life in the 1800s and early 1900s to cover all of these blank spaces of the map, right? And so that's a very intriguing thing. It's a very sexy thing to be doing. Like if you're a Victorian gentleman, one of the coolest hobbies you can have is geography, is going out and helping to make maps, right? And so the RGS is a really hip thing to be a part of. So Percy and Nina get to work making a child, and Fawcett starts training to use the tools of a geographical surveyor. He takes classes with the RGS. The RGS has like a course that you can take to become an explorer. Like they'll teach you how to make maps and also how to like introduce yourself to native populations and try to communicate with them. There's like actual instruction on all these different things that's varying degrees of effective and problematic, right?
Yeah, I bet that class on how to introduce yourself to native people was really something.
Yeah. You start by shooting. No, they weren't quite that bad, usually. So his instructor noted, quote, he was extremely quick at learning anything new. And although he'd never used a sextant or an artificial horizon before, he caught on to using both tools with remarkable speed. He's noted by his instructors, like the things that it took people years to get good at, he very quickly became good at. When it comes to the actual technical tools of using surveying equipment, he's excellent. At least he seems to be, right? I don't know how to do any of this stuff, so I can't judge it. I have to go by what this guy says. Unfortunately, his education in being an explorer included more than just technical instruction. One of his course books was written by Sir Francis Galton and was titled Hints to Travelers. And you've probably heard of Galton. He was a famous mathematical genius who contributed to many fields, most notably early genetic science. He was also a gigantic racist and is the guy most often credited with creating eugenics. Sir Francis Galton is the father of eugenics. And his interests extended to map making and exploration. He was an explorer as a younger man, and in his guide to adventurers, he described foreign peoples as the lower civilized nations, or savages, and insisted some races are inferior to others in volume and complexity of brain. So Percy's not just getting taught how to use map tools. There's some other shit in that class.
Yeah. It's important for your navigation lessons to come with just a dollop of racism.
You can't navigate properly unless you're a bigot. Everybody knows that. That's I don't have a bit to make about that, actually. So Fawcett graduates. He does well enough in his map and racism class that he gets sent off on a mission. Well, not a mission of discovery. He actually gets sent off as a spy. Because one thing that the British government has realized is that if we have the RGS sending people around the world to make maps, folks are used to the idea that there might just be some nerdy scientists around making maps. And if we, instead of nerdy scientists, send spies disguised as nerdy scientists, they can do a lot of like spy work for the Empire without necessarily getting caught. And that's what Percy gets sort of inducted to do. Per the book Brazil That Never Was, he was sent by the Foreign Office to Morocco to investigate Sir Henry Maclean, a British officer considered to be the power behind the Sultanate, and to report back on the threat posed by France and Germany. So he's given a spy mission. It's not really that evil, a spy mission, to be honest. Like, he's spying on another British officer for the most part, and he's kind of looking at, like, what are the French and the British doing in Morocco? He does this competently. He seems to have done a reasonably good job. He does not seem to have been discomfited by the fact that his government wanted him working as a spy instead of an explorer. But he's also not, I think it's that he was good enough at this that he probably could have got more spy work from the government. I don't think he really likes this. He's interested in exploration. He's not interested in spying for the government very much. He's going to do the best job he can, but once this is finished, he doesn't seem interested in continuing to follow down that road. And instead, he gets back into the military, and he's stationed in Ireland for a time after his return, and then to Malta, and then to Hong Kong, and then finally, in 1903, back to Ceylon. And Ceylon is where he's going to have his first son, Jack, and it's where he's going to start going really crazy. Yeah, Tom Holland. This is when he gives birth to baby Tom Holland, or his wife does. I don't think Percy does. That would be odd. But yes, this is where Tom Holland comes into the picture, Sophie. You're very correct. And we'll talk about Tom Holland in part 2 of the Percy Fawcett story, the Tom Holland story.
I'm just so glad Tom Holland got to play a dying Victorian child, which it sounds like the role he was born to play, especially back 10 years ago.
The moment you meet Tom Holland's character in that movie, you're waiting for him to die. Like, you're like, all right, how are they going to kill you? You look like the kind of boy who needs to die.
Cool. Miriam, you have anything you want to plug at the end here of part 1?
Sure. I'm so excited to find out how this guy ends up lost in the jungle and dead. Yes, I am a host of Live Like the World is Dying, a podcast for what feels like the end times, aka these times. And it's like, if you want to learn about disaster preparedness, but are not somebody who wants to like hide in a bunker with all of your beans. Instead, maybe you can like learn about how you can acquire skills and build community, and also hear about other people who are doing cool stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. Check us out. The podcast is a project of Strangers in a Tangled Wilderness, which is the publishing collective that I'm a part of. And we have books and zines. And if you support us on Patreon, we'll send you zines in the mail. And that's cool. Excellent. People like getting zines in the mail.
They like getting zines, perhaps even a map to a lost city that you can go with your young son and lead him to his death in, They can't stop you.
We haven't published so many maps to lost cities to get people killed, but, who knows what the future may hold.
There's time.
There's nothing stopping you. It's apparently legal as far as I'm aware.
Boy, howdy. We'll be back for part 2.
Yeah, but between part 1 and part 2, go die in the jungle,
Don't.
If that's what you want for yourself,
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Why not? A lot of people are saying it's a great thing to do. Just one person. Percy said that.
Yeah, don't do that. Bye.
Anyway, see you tomorrow.
Behind the Bastards is a production of Cool Zone Media. For more from Cool Zone Media, visit our website, coolzonemedia.com. Or check us out on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Full video episodes of Behind the Bastards are now streaming on Netflix, dropping every Tuesday and Thursday. Hit Remind Me on Netflix so you don't miss an episode. For clips and our older episode catalog, continue to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@BehindTheBastards. We love about 40% of you, statistically speaking.
This is Adam Devine,
Blake Anderson,
and Anders Holm from
This Is Important.
Hey, if you've been adulting too hard today, this is your sign to take a break with Slice.
Slice is a full-flavored soda you loved back and better for you with real fizz, 5 grams of sugar or less, plus prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics.
It's low sugar, gut-friendly, and actually tastes like soda because it is a better soda. So the next time adulthood gets a little too serious, grab a Slice. Real fizz, real flavor, real benefits.
This is Chelsea Handler from Dear Chelsea. If you travel a lot with your dog like I do with Doug, feeding them well on the road can get surprisingly complicated, especially when you're touring 30 plus cities, staying in hotels, flying, driving, and basically living out of a suitcase. Frozen dog food sounds great until you realize you don't exactly have a freezer backstage. That's why I started bringing Just Fresh from Just Food for Dogs. It's real fresh dog food made with human-grade ingredients with meat and vegetables you can see in the bowl, but the difference is it's shelf-stable, which means I don't need a freezer or a cooler, and there's no prep. So now I can throw a few packs in my bag and Doug still gets a healthy meal wherever we are. Doug absolutely loves it, and I like knowing I am feeding my baby something that's actually good for him. It's also the #1 vet recommended fresh dog food made without preservatives or fillers. Go to justfoodfordogs.com and get 50% off your first order.
I survived 9 months in captivity, and I've spent my life exploring how other people survive what should have destroyed them. I'm Elizabeth Smart, and these are the Survivor Files. Every week, I'm with survivors who lived through the unthinkable, abducted, stalked, controlled, and nearly silenced. These are stories about what it takes to make it out alive. Listen to the Survivor Files with Elizabeth Smart on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If your bookshelf and your For You page are equally important to your personality, welcome home. Pro Society is a weekly podcast that's part book club, part group chat for anyone who thinks Pride and Prejudice and Love Island deserve the same level of discourse. Each week, we're connecting the dots between books, the internet, and pop culture with your favorite writers, book talk creators, and plenty of overthought opinions. Yeah, I'm obsessed. Listen to Pro Society on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.